We just saw A Different Man. I almost said the ugly one. The new indie dark comedy with Sebastian Stan. And we're going to start the gist up front, and then we'll let you know when we're going to say spoilers. I really, really liked it. I had a feeling when I saw the trailer that I would like it. I thought it was based on this German play that I assistant directed called The Ugly One. And I just felt like it was... Sebastian Stan blew me away. I just had no idea he was such a good actor because of the Marvel movies. I mean, everyone in the Marvel movies are decent, but you just assume that they're like kind of basic because they're Marvel movies. I just felt like it was such a interesting parody about how we interact with people on the surface and what we say behind people's backs, and being able to love yourself and be comfortable with yourself despite how you look and all the envy and all the things that come along with it. Is there anything you want to say about the gist?
Yeah, really good acting, and just overall just a good film. Interesting style. It kind of had a grain to it, almost like it was from the 70s or something.
Yeah, I really
like
liked
that.
It
reminded me a lot of like watching Taxi Driver.
Mm-hmm.
When Paul Schrader wrote Taxi Driver, he was really inspired by some like poem or book that he read with the concept of God's lonely man. So like, how does a character deal with like extreme loneliness? And I kind of got vibes of that too, like this guy who is just kind of all alone, and then and shuts himself into this life of that because of his condition. And what does he do when he doesn't have that condition anymore, and how does he change?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what this movie is about, and just kind of there's all sorts of things that you don't really see coming. That makes the movie pretty funny.
Yeah, the gist of it is the lead guy has some sort of condition that has his face.
He has a real condition
that has his face be
exists.
I don't know if deformed is the politically correct term, but has his face.
Yeah, he has something that causes like growths on his face, and then
he does this trial, and I mean this is not ruining it if you see the trailer.
A drug trial that basically removes his condition
and has him be attractive for the first time in his life, and then so it's just dealing with that, his whole journey through that, the beginning, and what that looks like now that he looks a different way. Okay, spoiler alert. Stop listening if you haven't seen it. What was the thing that you were saying right after the movie was done that was so interesting about the...
I just, whenever I see, movies that has like a character that is, shocking to the eyes, if you will, they always kind of ham it up with the other people in the story, like, but they really downplayed that. Like, you knew it was happening, but it wasn't like, oh, like people weren't clutching their pearls when this guy walked by.
Yeah, it was super subtle.
It was more so like they just didn't really notice him, or didn't really care. It's kind of like, it's so, and especially the setting being in New York, like they kind of placed him in this like environment that was kind of like, the bad part of town, if you will. Maybe that's why they tried to capture like New York in the 70s, when it was kind of like even more gritty and stuff like that.
But yeah, all the things were really subtle.
There's so many other like wild people in the setting that they created, that he really was just kind of one of the crowd, and everybody else, I felt, was kind of viewing him that way, but he didn't view himself that way. He still kind of acted kind of like this outcast.
And I think that's why that him being introduced and faced with this character of this person that had his same condition, that was such a great guy, that was so confident and lovely and enjoyable to be around, and basically who he was like, I'm wonderful and I'm amazing. It doesn't matter that I look this way. It had Sebastian Stan have to face how much, even as a beautiful, attractive man now, that he still hated himself.
Yeah.
So it was just such a great example and such a great point of, it literally doesn't matter what you look like if deep down who you are is that you love yourself.
And plus, he was kicking himself that the woman that he fell in love with, like, actually was attracted to him even when he had his condition.
Yeah.
And he didn't really get that.
That's the thing. It's like, it was such a perfect example of, like, when he said, oh, he died, right? Instead of just, I was like so blown away by that. But then also it made so much sense because he was so ashamed of who he was. He was so ashamed of who he was, he would never want to get attention and be remembered as someone that was possibly horrifying, even though now he looked attractive, because he was so insecure, even as someone who was attractive now, because him in the inside was the same. So, like, because I kept thinking about, like, how different the story and how his life would have gone if he had just been up front with the medical people and been like, oh my gosh, look at the transformation. With her, oh my gosh, look at the transformation. It's like, he could have still been the lead in the play and still gotten the girl. He could have been this, like, famous, like, you know, unbelievable person because he was being honest and authentic and facing and showing who he was. Do you have to fidget around and, like, buckle and all this stuff? I'm, like, telling you something and you're, like, barely even listening.
Oh, you telling me? You're podcasting.
I'm talking to you and them. It's a dialogue between me and you.
I mean, I already kind of said everything. I mean, that's why the joke at the end with the asshole that he stabbed was so funny. Because it was just kind of like, you know, he was just like, you didn't expect that. And
I laughed so hard.
Almost like the whole movie was like building up to this one big punchline where it was like, it's like, oh, there's the real world, you know, like people talking behind people's backs and not confronting, you know, stuff. But
and it's almost like that, him finally lashing out against that guy was almost like him finally standing up for himself, him finally accepting that is who he is, and like who also he's become, that even him now as this beautiful man, that it's like he's almost turned against who he truly was by judging and hating this guy and wanting people to be like, don't you see that he's fake and da-da-da, even though he's the one that's fake. It's just so good.
Yeah, it was really great. And he just kept flipping things on their head.
Anyway, go see it. Go see it, people. It's funny, it's a dark comedy, and also it felt a little bit like a body horror at the same time. We literally just saw, you know,
it had a moment.
It had moments.
Like that much.
Well, if you think about it, though.
Yeah.
Like just what it's addressing, the topic of it.
Yeah, sure.